Hello everybody, welcome to this Monday transmission. We are at the super new moon in Cancer. It's the 17th of July. I might see some of you tonight for the stand in your power workshop. Be available live and on replay. I'm just in the middle of a little fairy patch. When I know I need to get outside and connect, I'll come and just spend some time, usually without my phone, without technology, and I'll just be here with the Fae, big and small, just having a little chat, connecting with the little oak trees and new oaks, and all the other beautiful trees around here. So, there's been a video that wanted to come through for a little while here. And I remember mentioning it a few weeks back, saying, oh, the next video is going to be on communication. And we never got there. And so I intend to address this today. But first let's look at Cancer. Let's look at the Cancer energy. This, just watching the Fae move around me. Cancer energy, the energy of the crab, the ocean, the waters, emotion, energy in motion, right? The psychic sensitivities of that sign. Now, many of us only really resonate with our sun sign, or maybe our moon, or maybe our rising, but we don't realize that we have all of the zodiac in our charts. We move through all of the zodiac. We do. I'm going to stand up. I move through all of the zodiac. Hello, puppies. There's some dogs here. We move through all of the zodiacs to actually get here. They form up our birth chart, our natal chart. It progresses. We have a galactic chart, as one of my beloved sisters says a lot. And so therefore we all have this influence every time there is a particular cosmic shift. It's going to influence us, it's going to magnetize to us in various different ways. What it is that's going to be a focus to us. But let's look at the archetype in general, because things like this always, they always have a generic archetype, right? And then they have the overlay and the personalization for each of us, depending on which house that thing's in, where your planets are, what karma you have. Now, Cancer, super psychic, super sensitive, can seem quite volatile in emotion if we misunderstand the process that Cancer goes through. And I know for me, I've really felt this Cancerian energy this past few weeks. You know, it's really brought up a lot of things. Now, the really interesting thing as well here is that it goes hand in hand with the nodal changes, right? We're shifting from Taurus, Scorpio to, is it Aries and Libra? You know? So there's a massive conclusion of karmic cycles coming up. Now, if we can be aware that every single human on this planet is going through something, it allows us to reach from our hearts rather than our egos, rather than our wounds. Because we're all going through something and we all need validating, really, in that sense. We shouldn't, obviously we get to a point where we're like, oh, I shouldn't need, there's that should and shouldn't, I shouldn't need the validation. But to be able to read and understand from the heart how each of us are maybe moving, and to be able to, from our hearts in truth, connect with a beloved and offer them an inspiration when their ego is strongly active. Because this is what's also going to happen, right? Is that any thoughts that we have that do not feel good, because Cancer is super creative. Oh, they're so creative, super imagination. But that can get carried away, especially if we've got things that we're still needing to emote and complete. Because the thing is that we're getting a complete electromagnetic shift right? We're having this complete electromagnetic shift. The nodal axis is shifting for us, for the moon. It influences our emotions and how we process things. You know, there's a lot going on. But right now, we're being called to release ideas, ideals, release programs, release expectations, especially familial. There is that energy of the mother, right? And even not just the mother, but how females around you may show up. And once again, check where Cancer is in your chart, and check which planets may be getting activated, or which houses may be getting activated right now for you. But there's a lot going on. And that's not new. But it seemed particularly intense for many people in their own ways. And we are stronger when we can come together in trust and in love. When we can reach out to one another and say, hey, you know, hey, I need this little bit of inspiration right now. There is no shame or weakness in that. We have to shift from this hyper-independent trauma response that is very active, especially within feminine energy, this wounded feminine aspect of ourselves. You know, it makes us hyper independent, and that's a trauma response. It's a masculinization of the feminine energy, and that's showing up a lot right now, you know. So this Cancer super new moon, it's really bringing it out of us because it's ready to clear. We've called it forward. We don't want to be carrying this stuff around. We're embodying more and more and more light. Much love to everyone in the comments. We're embodying more and more and more light. And so the shadows are going to show up. But remember, the shadows are of the ego. Thoughts like that are of the ego. It is the ego which thinks. It is only the ego which thinks. The source part of you doesn't think. Not in that way. And we've said many times before that emotion is a process. It's alchemy. We don't have to do anything specifically. If the emotion is there, let it run through, as intense as it might be. If the emotion is there, let it complete, because that will do the alchemy for you. That will do the alchemy for you. But you got to hold steady, right, in the process. You got to hold steady in the process. When the emotion is moving through, it is going to attract thoughts that are not going to feel good to think. And your imagination with this Cancerian energy is going to really go overboard a little bit. But what also we have is we have this entry, this gateway to past lives. Cancer is one of those that offers us gateway to past lives as well. So you may find that there are past lives coming up that you've never even seen before. Patterns showing up from past life experiences that you're just like, holy, where did that come from? And it's coming up because it's time to clear it. It's stuff that you brought into this lifetime, which you may not have even realized. It happens to all of us. We all process things differently. I have a lot of earth and a lot of water in my chart. When I process emotion, it tends to be in a very, it can be in a very watery way, you know? That's not how everyone processes, though. You know, if you've got a lot of air in your chart or a lot of fire in your chart, you might need to move your body. You might need to speak it out. You might need to go through all the thought processes and just let the thoughts think themselves out. But we're also getting to this place where we have to allow containers to be held. We have to offer them, invite them, and welcome them in. And what I mean by that is, I don't mean through obligation. I just mean about how together we stand up and stand strong and stand tall, and how we support one another in the way that we desire. We have to realize that sometimes that means that we have to be able to hold a container so stable and safe in a sovereign way, so that your loved ones can have the assistance they need for the alchemy. We're not meant to do all this alone. If we're meant to do it alone, we wouldn't be physical. You know? We came here to have physical experiences, holographic physical experiences, to show ourselves the creativity of Source, that Source wanted to discover, to learn, to play with the laws of creation, manifestation, all those things. But the tidal waves of the emotion of the waters of the moon right now are big. And they're meant to be big because we're meant to wash away and blast away, really. Water is the most powerful force, really, on this planet. Water can cut diamonds, you know? It can cut through things. We birth through those primordial waters. We are rejuvenated, reborn, rebirthed in those waters. The waters of the mother. There's a lot of mother energy coming up to clear, and we have to realize as well that our birth mothers, or our own mothers, they're not to blame. Because we carry it through the ancestry, we carry it through the lineage. It's just a realization, a recognition that we are all one, that we're all connected, that we, before our parents came, we were before them. In a different time, in a different space. We could have been our great-grandparents. And then we were their mother, you know? We're in this really beautiful, sacred space of seeing from our hearts, seeing one another in our truths. And what that means is not identifying, not listening, not validating the illusions that may come forth in a process. But yet at the same time, you know, it might be helpful to someone to help offer them that little extra breath of inspiration, that breath of life, when they are in those depths of the ocean, to help them see their truth, to offer them an anchor or a line. Because when we're in our hearts, nothing can pull us, right? When we are centered and aligned in our hearts, nothing can pull us. But for the energies that are moving through, the grief that is moving through, the sadness that is moving through the channels out there that are super sensitive to it, that's a real thing. It might not all be your grief. It might not be. It might be stuff for your family, your friends, your environment around you. But if you're bringing it through you, that's something that you've chosen to do. You know, that's something you've chosen to do. There's perhaps even Virgoan energy in there. So how do we communicate with one another? Because we're all, like, those of you listening to me speak might think, oh, she's speaking English. I speak English too. But we all have a different language. You might be speaking English. I might be speaking English. But the language is different. What I may say may be heard and interpreted differently. We all speak a different language. So we're at this space and at this time, this awakening moment, this space where we get to really rise up higher and stronger and bolder than we've ever been before, and we get to say, what do you mean? Help me understand. I don't think I've understood you correctly. I don't think I'm interpreting or hearing this correctly. I want to hold the space to hear you, you know? Cancer represents the breasts, the nourishment of the mother. How are we nourishing ourselves? We can't, as the age-old type of, you know, as the analogy goes, you can't put on someone else's, you know, breathing mask or whatever. If the plane's going down, you put on your own first and then you put on your neighbor's. You got to fill your own cup. It's a powerful time that we all came to move through and power through in a very graceful way, but it doesn't feel always so graceful, hey, when we've got that deep emotion moving through, especially if it's sticking around for a while. But that's okay. You're not too much, you're not too sensitive, you're not too dramatic, you're processing, you're in a process. Everyone is in a process, whether they admit it or not, whether they share it or not, whether they seem like they are picture perfect on social media or not, it doesn't matter. Everyone is going through a process. Everyone is having their ego bring something forward to integrate. That's beautiful. So emotional intelligence, if we can recognize that anything that doesn't feel good to receive is perhaps part of a process instead of an identity of this being, of this person whom you love, or maybe who you've just met, who knows, then we get to see with eyes of source. We get to see in a way that is what we are calling forth for what we want to create in this community, this world. when we get to drop it down from the head and the crown, drop it into the heart, we really meet each other in a different way. Thank you, Wendy. So much love to you too. So from the fae and the trees and the birds and the bees behind me, I saw a little bee. Oh my goodness, last night when I was out here, there was a bee just sleeping, just curled up in a leaf, just having a little snooze. That was the cutest thing. But yeah, it's a beautiful time to be alive. There is a lot of emotional process. We're all going through it. It will all be okay. It will all be okay. It is already okay. The quicker you can catch the thoughts of the ego and say, do I want to create that? The quicker you can catch those thoughts and go, wait, is that what I want to create? No. Does that feel good to think? No. Then is it me thinking it? No, because we're not the ego. Yes, we have the ego with the body. We are not the ego, though. We don't have to give that control. We are letting the subconscious, the wounds of the subconscious, the inner child, the wounded part of our inner child, run the show, when really it just wants to be held, nurtured, reprogrammed. We have to take control of the mind, because otherwise the mind is taking control of us, which we've all heard before and we all know. So maybe I will see more of you tonight. We have quite a beautiful amount of people joining us for Stand in Your Power, the workshop tonight. It'll be on replay as well if you're busy. Unlimited replay. And I look forward very much to being here with you all in our sacred processes, anchoring more and more light than ever before, releasing the pincers of the crab for the old things, the old expectations and ideals that need to fall away, so that a stronger, more lighter, more connected and heart-based relationship with one another can form, with ourselves can form. This is about knowing you through and true, and releasing the things the ego wants to hold on to because it feels hard done by. Tame the ego. Let it release. Let it be nurtured. Let it be nourished by the milk of the mother, that Cancer energy. It's a new moon in a few hours. It shifts out of that dark phase in a couple of hours into that brand new cycle. Can you feel the shift already happening? I bet you can. Let your body release, replenish your waters. Water fasting is great right now. Yeah. I send you all so much love, and I'll see you tonight. And it's the last week, by the way, for anyone that is wanting to exchange for any... I have a beautiful puppy around my feet. It's the last week to get any remote healings, any light language attunements, or any personalized videos before I go on annual leave. See you later. These dogs are having so much fun. They're so cute.